Hello there, you're watching All 24 News World News Program, and up next are tonight's top stories. Algeria and Rwanda back peaceful solutions, reject interference, support Sahrawi self-determination, and call to end aggression against Palestinians. Also in our news, 27 martyrs in Rafah 8 center massacre. The UN calls it a war crime, demanding a swift investigation as Palestinian outrage grows. And hours before peace talks end, Kiev targets the Crimean Bridge for the third time since 2022. Russia sees no quick resolution and rejects a tripartite summit before a deal. We'll report shortly. Welcome back to the details. First off in our news tonight, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune highlighted a shared vision with Rwanda on key international issues, reaffirming both countries' commitment to peaceful resolutions across Africa. Speaking alongside President Paul Kagame at the Mouradia Palace, Tebboune underscored the urgency of a comprehensive political resolution in northern DR Congo.
أتاح لنا هذا اللقاء مع فخامة الرئيس بول كاغامي الفرصة لتبادل وجهات النظر حول الوضع في شرق جمهورية الكونغو الديمقراطية، وجددنا في هذا الشأن دعمنا الكامل لمساعي الجارية من أجل التوصل إلى حل سياسي شامل. كما تطرقنا إلى تداعيات الأزمة في السودان وضرورة تنشيط ضوء الاتحاد الإفريقي لإيجاد الحل المنشود.
Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune reaffirmed Algeria's backing for the UN settlement plan on Western Sahara, insisting on a free and fair referendum to ensure the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination.
وأعرب عن الارتياح لتقارب وجهات النظر بين بلدينا حول العديد من القضايا الإقليمية والدولية، وتمسكنا بمبدأ الحلول السلمية للنزاعات ورفض التدخلات الأجنبية في شؤون القارة الإفريقية. وفي سياق ذلك تبادلنا الآراء حول مناطق التوتر والنزاع في إفريقيا، وأكدنا دعمنا للشعب الصحراوي وحقه في تقرير المصير عبر الاستفتاء حر ونزيه وعادل وفقا لقرارات الشرعية الدولية.
Additionally, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune condemned Zionist occupation's war of extermination in Gaza Strip, demanding urgent aid for the besieged enclave and reaffirming the Palestinian people's right to an independent state.
بطبيعة الحال عبرنا في هذه المناسبة عن انشغالنا العميق بالأوضاع في غزة وضرورة الوقف الفوري للعدوان على الشعب الفلسطيني وضمان إيصال المساعدات الإنسانية في أقرب الأجال ودعم حقه في إقامة دولته المستقلة على حدود 1967 وعاصمتها القدس الشريف.
Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune hailed the newly signed agreements with Rwanda as a step toward deeper partnership, urging swift implementation of concrete projects. He praised his enriching talks with President Paul Kagame, calling the Rwandan leader's visit a pivotal moment to strengthen bilateral cooperation and energize joint initiatives.
لقد أجرينا محادثات ثرية حول مجالات التعاون السياسي والأمني والاقتصادي والثقافي وإرساء آليات لترقية المبادلات التجارية، ومنها مجلس الأعمال الجزائري الرواندي، وتنظيم لقاءات دورية بين المتعاملين الاقتصاديين والمشاركة في المعارض ذات الطابع الاقتصادي. وأود هنا أن أثمن اتفاقيات ومذكرات التفاهم التي تم توقيعها قبل قليل وتكريسها في مشاريع ملموسة.
Meanwhile, Rwandan President Paul Kagame praised the long-standing ties between Rwanda and Algeria, vowing to deepen bilateral collaboration. During a joint statement or joint press conference with President Tebboune, Kagame highlighted their thriving academic partnership, particularly in artificial intelligence, calling it a testament to both nations' forward-looking vision.
The President and I had very constructive discussions which built on the long-standing friendship between our two countries. The diplomatic presence of Rwanda in Algeria, which we hope to have soon, will create more opportunities to strengthen our economic ties and see more engagement between our private sectors. In education, Algeria's support for Rwandan students in cutting-edge fields like artificial intelligence and data science has been very successful. I want to thank you, Mr. President. This reflects the forward-looking nature of our partnership and our shared interest to build the capacity of our people in various fields.
On a related note, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune and Rwandan President Paul Kagame witnessed the signing of 14 cooperation agreements spanning communications, agriculture, digital economy, and judicial collaboration during high-level talks in Algiers. The accords include memoranda on police cooperation, pharmaceutical partnerships, and visa exemptions for diplomatic passport holders, marking a major expansion of bilateral ties between the two countries. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune granted Rwandan President Paul Kagame with an official reception at Al Mouradia Palace on Tuesday. The official reception began with both national anthems, followed by the inspection of Republican Guard formation. A cavalry contingent lined the flag-adorned courtyard as Kagame's motorcade arrived. The two leaders later reviewed Algerian army units before posing for an official photograph. To follow up on that, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune held bilateral talks with Rwandan President Paul Kagame at the Algerian presidential headquarters. The discussions later expanded to include delegation members from both countries. Rwandan President Paul Kagame began a two-day official visit to Algeria on Tuesday at the invitation of President Abdelmadjid Tebboune. He was received by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune at Houari Boumediene International Airport with an official ceremony attended by senior Algerian officials. The two presidents listened to their national anthems, reviewed military formations, and greeted members of both delegations. Algeria and Rwanda share a long-standing relationship built on mutual respect, aligned positions, and a shared commitment to African solidarity and just causes. Here's Maro Blair with the report now.
Algeria and Rwanda share a long-standing relationship rooted in solidarity and a common commitment to African causes. Today, those ties are experiencing a marked renewal, driven by genuine cooperation and shared political will. In recent years, bilateral relations between Algiers and Kigali have gained momentum, reflecting the determination of both countries to deepen their partnership.
Nous avons trois catégories de questions qui...
We consistently focus on discussions on their main categories of questions. First is the bilateral relationship regarding which we have expressed our satisfaction with its overall state, be it in terms of economic cooperation or political consultations. We have also continued exchanging views on how best to give new impetus to these relations, particularly in light of upcoming meetings that will bring Algerians and Rwandans together.
Réunir Algériens et Rwandais.
The two nations advocate for a sovereign, stable and prosperous Africa and are stepping up cooperation in key strategic sectors, including security. Algeria and Rwanda remain firmly united in their fight against terrorism in all its forms.
Algeria, like Rwanda, of course, has suffered greatly from massacres and numerous criminal acts, whether committed by various occupying forces or by blind terrorism. What I recommend to brotherly people of Rwanda is to stand united in the face of the tragic events of the past. The past must not be forgotten, but lessons must be drawn from it. It is essential that fraternity unites the entire Rwandan people.
Tout le peuple rwandais.
Beyond security, the two countries aim to strengthen economic cooperation, promote bilateral partnerships, and encourage investment across multiple sectors. This growing dynamic reflects a shared vision of a united Africa, one built on intra-continental partnerships and empowered to tackle development challenges through its own resources and expertise.
Still with Algeria-related news, the Algerian Council of the Nation, chaired by Azouz Nasri, condemned on Tuesday what it called deliberate provocations by certain factions in the French Senate. In a statement from the upper parliamentary house, the council blamed far-right elements in the French legislature for the escalating deterioration of bilateral relations.
With deep dismay and strong condemnation, the Bureau of the Council of the Nation, under the leadership of Speaker Mr. Azouz Nasri, follows the latest provocation and renewed hostile behavior from certain members of the French Senate. These individuals aligned with the far right have long been a source of tension in Algerian-French relations. The Council denounces the repeated scandals and transgressions, including the welcome extended from time to elements affiliated with a terrorist entity, recognized as such, which openly boasts of its betrayal. This reckless conduct disregards the serious harm it causes to the present and future of bilateral ties.
Algeria's National Assembly firmly rejected all foreign interference in domestic affairs, including under human rights pretexts, asserting the nation's unified strength.
Those on the far right within France's political landscape, self-proclaimed champions of freedom and justice, continue to emulate the path of their colonial predecessors. They deliberately seek to offend, meddling in Algeria's internal affairs with the clear aim of undermining the nation's unity. These provocations reflect delusions from a bygone era, clung to by those who remain willfully deaf to the realities of modern Algeria.
French Socialist Party leader Olivier Faure accused Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau of normalizing racism in an interview with French channel TF1 on Tuesday. Faure affirmed that Retailleau is fostering suspicion against foreigners and French citizens perceived as foreign-born.
I believe, unfortunately, that day by day we are seeing the Minister of the Interior trying to create an atmosphere of racism. It is true that the far right talks about a racist France, but Retailleau's statements before the French public are attempting to downplay the seriousness of racism by creating a climate of suspicion toward foreigners, or even toward French citizens who are perceived as foreigners.
Shifting focus to the war on Gaza now, the Palestinian Ministry of Health reported that 27 Palestinians were killed and dozens wounded when Zionist occupation forces massacred displaced civilians awaiting aid in Rafah. Gaza's emergency services confirmed recovering the bodies of over 20 martyrs and evacuating more than 200 wounded after the occupation's shelling and gunfire targeted crowds near the U.S.-affiliated aid center.
Everything is under siege. Of course, we are forced to leave. Today, my uncle told my mom, "Don't worry." She went out and was shot in the head. We want to live with dignity, without humiliation and without insult.
Similarly, the EU Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor confirmed on Tuesday that occupation forces killed and injured over 600 Palestinians at 3 aid distribution points in Gaza Strip. In a statement, the monitor condemned the ongoing international silence over the Zionist entity's escalating genocidal crime, accusing it of using so-called humanitarian centers to target civilians without accountability. Amid the ongoing Zionist aggression, reactions have emerged. The government media office issued a blistering condemnation of the occupation's latest massacre in Rafah, part of a systematic campaign of starvation, then slaughter tactics against Palestinian civilians, holding the Zionist regime fully responsible for these aid-disguised killings. The statement demanded the UN and Security Council end their complicity by forcing open all crossings to break the occupation's stranglehold on humanitarian access.
We strongly condemn the massacres committed against starving civilians and hold the Israeli occupation fully responsible for these ongoing atrocities carried out under the guise of humanitarian aid. We also hold the U.S. administration, politically and militarily supportive of this bloody campaign, directly responsible for the use of food as a weapon in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. We call on the United Nations, the Security Council, and the human rights organizations to fulfill their moral and legal duties, act immediately, and pressure for unconditional opening of official crossings. We also urge the formation of an independent international committee to investigate and document these crimes and bring those responsible to justice. International silence only gives a green light for more massacres.
In a similar reaction, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, described the deadly attacks on civilians around aid distribution sites in Gaza Strip as a war crime. The UN Human Rights Office, for its part, confirmed on Tuesday that obstructing civilians' access to food and other relief supplies in the Gaza Strip may constitute a war crime. The spokesman for the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Geneva, Jeremy Lawrence, said that the attacks on civilians trying to access food supplies are unacceptable.
Deadly attacks on distraught civilians trying to access the paltry amounts of food aid in Gaza are unconscionable. For a third day running, people were killed around an aid distribution site run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. This morning, we received information that dozens more people were killed and injured.
Lawrence stressed that a prompt and impartial investigation into attacks directed against civilians must be opened, calling for holding those behind them fully responsible.
There must be a prompt and impartial investigation into each of these attacks and those responsible held to account.
Moving on to the war in Ukraine, Russia proposed two ceasefire options in a memorandum submitted to Ukraine during peace talks in Istanbul. According to TASS, the document followed the second round of negotiations held between the two sides on Monday. And in a further development to that story, the Russian presidency confirmed Tuesday it anticipates no swift resolution to the Ukraine conflict, acknowledging the settlement process as extremely complex. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov noted both sides had reached significant agreements during Istanbul talks that would now be implemented.
It would not be correct to expect some immediate decision of breakthrough, but the work is in progress. Certain agreements have been reached in Istanbul. They're important because people matter the most. The agreements will be fulfilled, and then the work will continue.
The Kremlin stated that a trilateral meeting between Presidents Putin, Zelensky, and Trump won't occur in the immediate future. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov clarified such a summit would only happen after reaching a prior agreement on resolving the Ukraine conflict.
To be honest, it's unlikely to happen soon. President Putin has said multiple times that he's ready for the contacts at the highest level, but he stressed out that the context must be a result of solutions that have been worked out on the expert level. So President Putin supports those contacts, but we think that they should be well prepared.
Amid the ongoing peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, the two sides have ramped up war again after Kiev targeted Russian facilities from the inside of Russia. On the other front, Russian forces have carried out a massive military attack on Ukraine, killing at least 5 people. Usame Aidu reports now.
Tensions between Russia and Ukraine have sharply escalated on the eve of peace talks, with both sides launching major offensives in one of the largest drone battles of the war. The Russian Defense Ministry claims its forces struck Ukrainian drone production sites, ammunition depots, and troop deployment locations across 152 targets in the past 24 hours. Russian air defense has reportedly intercepted Storm Shadow cruise missiles and aerial bombs.
These are ruins. It cannot be rebuilt. Even the attic was on fire. My husband and a firefighter went there to put out the fire. But then there was the second strike, so they ran away and only after came back to put out the fire.
Moscow says it destroyed 316 Ukrainian drones, with 205 shot down, far beyond the front lines. Meanwhile, Ukraine executed a bold long-range strike targeting Russia's nuclear-capable bombers deep inside Siberia. A Ukrainian intelligence official confirmed Sunday's attack condemned Operation Spider's Web was planned for over a year. Explosives were smuggled near the airbase using trucks, damaging 41 warplanes. The SBU estimates $7 billion in losses, claiming Russia lost 34% of its strategic cruise missile carriers.
The operation was prepared for more than a year and a half planning. All the details were planned ideally. I can say with confidence that it is an absolutely unique operation. The most interesting part, and now I can talk about it publicly, the office of our operation on the Russian territory was based close to FSB department in one of its regions.
In another development, Ukraine's SBU says it struck the critical road and rail bridge linking Russia to Crimea, hitting support structures below water level. As both sides intensify strikes ahead of negotiations, analysts warn the conflict is entering a dangerous new phase, with long-range attacks and high-tech drone warfare reshaping the battlefield. The world now watches to see if these latest attacks will derail peace efforts or force both sides back to the table.
In another global news story, Sudanese media reported that Rapid Support Forces shelling targeted a World Food Programme humanitarian convoy in North Darfur's El Koma area, killing at least 4 aid workers, injuring 2 others and destroying 7 vehicles. Sources condemned the assault as a deliberate RSF effort to block critical aid deliveries to besieged civilians in Al-Fashar and displacement camps. Adding to that, the United Nations confirmed that nearly 4 million people have been displaced from Sudan since conflict erupted in April 2023. The UNHCR spokesperson Eugene Byun, addressing reporters in Geneva, branded the mass exodus catastrophic and unprecedented in scale, underscoring its status as the planet's most severe current displacement emergency. Turning to other news now, US President Donald Trump declared Monday that any draft nuclear agreement with Iran would explicitly prohibit uranium enrichment, contradicting reports of potential concessions. In a post on Truth Social, Trump asserted the United States will not allow Iran to enrich uranium, a direct rebuke of Axios reporting that Washington's latest proposal included limited enrichment permissions, a provision his administration historically opposed. For his part, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian reaffirmed Tehran's commitment to a purely peaceful nuclear program during receiving the New Zealand ambassador's credentials. He reaffirmed that Iran does not seek nuclear weapons in any form, expressing readiness for full cooperation to verify the program's peaceful nature. And that's the end of our news program for tonight. For more updates, you can always visit our social media platforms as well as our website. On behalf of All 24 News, thank you for tuning in. Good night.